You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Conservative reveals how Trump is living out his favorite movie Dart in the worst way, based on an article by Matthew Rarza. Trump's pageant of power is the point. The power behind the pageant. Donald Trump is not a confused spectator of events. He is the president, with the institutional power to threaten Canada, menace Greenland, and steer the machinery of war and spectacle. That is the fact the source material keeps circling. The man at the center of the show is the one making the choices, and everyone else is living with the consequences. David Frum treats Trump's July 4 speech as a kind of accidental leak of civics into a cruder personality. That is too generous. The presidency did not become less dangerous because a few phrases about freedom made it onto a teleprompter. The danger is that Trump can still borrow the language of Republican virtue while governing like a strongman who measures success by fear, dominance, and personal gain. Delusion is a bad cover story. The source leans on the image of Norma Desmond, which is useful only if you don't mistake self-delusion for innocence. Trump's problem is not merely that he believes his own mythology. It is that he uses mythology to govern. He boasts about military strength, talks like a warlord, and then wraps that appetite in patriotic costume whenever it suits him. Frum notes that Trump does not care about any ideals beyond national fearsomeness and personal enrichment. That is the cleanest line in the whole piece. It identifies the governing logic. The speech was not a break from Trump's politics. It was the same politics, dressed for a holiday audience. Empire in holiday clothing. The source says Trump's second term has included threats toward Canada and Greenland and actual wars against Venezuela and Iran, while Frum also flags his reckless drive toward Middle East escalation. However those moves are justified in the White House or sold to the public, the pattern is plain: coercion first, explanation later, if at all. This is what imperial politics looks like when it is normalized at home. The state's violence gets recast as strength. The president's appetite becomes national destiny, and the public is asked to applaud the performance instead of noticing the bill. The misdirection machine. The article's real weakness is that it whisks treating Trump's poster as a personality flaw rather than a political method. He flinches from accountability. Frum writes, "True enough, but accountability does not fail by accident. It is evaded through institutions, loyalists, media rituals, and a political culture that keeps translating deliberate harm into confusion, temperament, or impulsiveness. That is the misdirection. Trump is not drifting into disaster. He is making choices inside a system built to absorb them. When he flirts with war, inflates his own force, or waves off consequences like gasoline prices or the Strait of Hormuz, the damage is not just rhetorical. It is policy being laundered through bravado. The Democrats' burden. The source correctly centers Trump as the actor with rebel agency, but it also implies something else. The anti-democratic project has not yet been politically broken. That is where the Democratic coalition matters. Not as ceremonial opposition, and not as a purity club, but as the only institutional vehicle capable of resisting a presidency that treats the republic as a stage set. That means the answer is not to domesticate Trump's behavior into concerns or controversies. It is to name the governing pattern: authoritarian vanity, imperial impulse, and contempt for accountability. Anything less gives the performance too much credit and the victims too little. The larger pattern. Trump's July 4 spectacle, his war talk, his contempt for gold star families, and his habit of converting weakness into domination all point to the same political truth. Authoritarianism is not only a set of policies. It is a style of rule that relies on spectacle, denial, and the constant conversion of power into ego. That is the system the source brushes against, but does not fully name. The story is not that Trump sometimes betrays the better angels of American rhetoric. The story is that he uses patriotic rhetoric as cover for politics of intimidation. And too much of the political class still treats that as a personality problem instead of what it is, a governing strategy. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to AlterNet for today's article. With the automated voice of Razak, thanks for listening.